From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mike Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tim Coco, and you're tuned to 97.9 FM, WHAV, and the Open Mike Show. Welcome, everybody. Coming up tonight, well, the one thing that you've all been waiting for, one of the more popular months for birthday and anniversary cake wishes, we're going to draw names about 8:15, but there's still time for you to enter a friend, a loved one, what have you, to win a free 7-inch cake. Choice of vanilla or chocolate from Albidi's second-generation Italian bakery, 140 South Main Street in Bradford. Now, all you have to do is wish someone a happy birthday who is celebrating in August, which begins tomorrow, or anniversaries in August. Now, the hat is pretty full, more than I remember it being, so it's highly competitive, but you could still win. So call 978-374-1900 to enter the contest. You can nominate yourself, no rule against that, so don't be shy. We rearranged our studio a little bit tonight. It makes a little more sense this way. I can see my producer, the famous DJ Chris, in master control, the man with 5 radio jobs, all of them unpaid. Well, someday we'll work on that here. But anyway, Chris, why don't you open up the microphone, tell people what you're doing on a New Hampshire station these days.
Yes.
Chris is true to his title, DJ Chris. I don't know if he still uses that, but we're using it. And fresh off a long run with WMEX in Boston, 1510. Everyone remembers MEX as the kind of the big rock and roll station of Boston. But things haven't gone too well for MEX lately. So no. Chris is over at where?
We're at AM 900 and AM 1250 WGAM. That's in Nashua and Manchester.
Now, I heard you on the air this weekend, and I think you were referring to its former call letters, which are pretty famous. Is that?
Yeah, WKBR.
WKBR up there in Manchester. I used to work in Manchester, so I remember that. Well, what do you know about that? So, Chris, you do oldies.
Yes, I do.
And your co-host is?
Jim Callahan, or Jimmy C.
Now, Jim Callahan has also been here on WHAV in the studio a couple of times at least. Probably be back soon. But what drives you, Chris, to play oldies music? I mean, you're what, in your mid-20s?
Yeah, I just love it.
I mean, some of this stuff is 50 years older than you are.
It's good stuff, though.
All right, so you really do enjoy it. Well, Chris, of course, is going to bring an oldie show to WHAV as well, as soon as we can figure out a time when he's not getting paid working. But for now, we're grateful to have him as producer of the Open Mike Show. He's the one who takes your calls, puts you through, answers questions. And I now have to turn around to see that we're on TV, which makes it less of a distraction. But greetings to our viewers as well at Haverhill Community Television, HC Media Channel 22, and on WHAV's Facebook stream. That's up and running, right, Chris?
Yes, it is.
And WHAV.TV, and, of course, on the radio, 97.9 FM, WHAV, and streaming online, WHAV.net. All right, Chris is looking somewhere. I don't know what that's all about. Is our guest here?
There's some alarm going off somewhere.
There's an alarm going off somewhere. Well, folks, if we have to abandon the studios, we'll see what happens. But actually, that might be a great segue. Another topic, listeners, first I want to tell you that after the news at 7 o'clock, we have a very, very interesting guest coming. David Kowalski of Groveland. Now, he has worked for National Grid, formerly Boston Gas, Keyspan, what have you, but he is very much involved with the Labor Guild School. It's associated with the Archdiocese in Boston. But, you may have heard him already on the air. He's doing a community spotlight about classes beginning for the Labor Guild's 2017 fall term. But very interestingly, he talks about in my conversation with him, the origins of labor unions going all the way back to the Middle Ages or so. We're going to hear a little bit about that history when he comes on. I think it's fascinating, and people seem to love history, so we'll do a little bit of that. But speaking of fire alarms, are we still hearing an alarm?
It seems to have quieted down now. I don't know what it was. It didn't sound like a fire alarm.
Oh, I wonder what it was. All right. Folks, if the building collapses, we'll let you know, or maybe you'll notice yourselves. All right. So in any event, we have 3 firefighters running for elected office. Now, we'll see how many remain in the running when signatures are due tomorrow. But one person who you may have heard on WHAV News today is Barry Ferguson. He's been with the fire department for, 29 years, and he has taken out papers to run for the mayor's seat in the city of Haverhill. Now, that's not as long a shot as some might think. After all, former Haverhill Mayor Lewis Burton was Haverhill's fire chief. So it is possible to make that jump. That went back to 1975. But he has indicated some skepticism on the news today, but when I talked to him later today, more positive that he'll actually go ahead, get those signatures turned in, and run for mayor. Maybe you have a thought on that, or about the other 2 firefighters who, at least until papers are due, have indicated some interest in city council seats, Greg Roberts and Tim Carroll. Do you have a thought on that? Now, my understanding is, at least on the city council side, they can't take 2 different salaries, so they would obviously not give up their firefighting salaries if it's either Roberts or Carroll. Obviously, the mayor's job is a full-time job. Looks like it's going to pay more beginning in January. Maybe you have a thought on that as well. I've heard arguments on both sides of that. I have no official opinion, but City Council hasn't had a raise in 30 years. So they've had some expense money go up here and there, and then there was an IRS decision that said you can't have expense reimbursements unless you submit receipts, and either way you can't be a 1099 contractor when you're also on the payroll. So that money was folded in. It was raised a little bit. I'm not saying I buy arguments on either side. There's some people who say that maybe those jobs should be unpaid. That's also a tough one. I think there's some merit to paying people. There are a lot of hours involved if you do the job right, and I think the vast majority of them do. They go to meetings several nights a week. They're the ones who throw out the baseball at the events. They do the research into some cumbersome bills before, or draft ordinances before the city council. But there is an argument to be made that, well, a stipend is good enough. What are your thoughts? 978-374-1900 to get on the Open Mike Show. All right. Now, speaking also of history, I don't know if any of you saw, I think many of you did, saw or heard WHAV's report on renovations on the 3rd floor of City Hall. Now, on the 3rd floor is the retirement board, and the retirement board has temporarily moved its offices into a meeting room at room 301, if you're familiar with City Hall, up there on the 3rd floor, and their old offices are being renovated. And part of the renovation involves removing a partition that went up back around the time the former Haverhill High School became Haverhill City Hall about 1973. So the partition is coming down, and they're scraping the walls and pulled up the carpeting, took down the suspended ceilings, and lo and behold, it looked to me, and if you saw it at WHAV.net, you can only hear about it on the radio news, but you could see the picture on the website, and the hardwood floors, the chalkboard was exposed, the tall ceilings. It looked a lot like it must have looked when it was a Haverhill High School classroom. Now, of course, after Haverhill High moved to its new campus, and I think I've been corrected, it was 1963 when Haverhill High moved to Monument Street, Amesbury, the following year, had a devastating fire that destroyed its high school, and they moved in to the former Haverhill High School and had classes there while they were building a new school. And then Northern Essex Community College, which had been meeting, and maybe at the same time still was, at the Greenleaf School in Bradford, having classes there, they took over what was Haverhill High School. And the building was finally abandoned when Northern Essex opened its new campus on Elliott Street up there by Canosa Lake and Winnikinny Castle. And people found that urban renewal was going to take our old city hall and that the old high school might make a nice city hall. Now, I was growing up around that time, and I recall it seemed like a real hasty move, if you ask me, but I was just a kid. We went into the old high school, and it looked like boxes and furniture were just dumped anywhere to get it out of the old building in time to tear it down, unfortunately. And it was rather ramshackle. And then, being the worst, and I'm sure some of you might disagree with me, but I bet few will, the 1970s were the worst possible decade for building anything. I don't know what the thought process was during the 70s, but the ugly architecture, ugly styles, ugly painting, God knows I had to wear a really ugly tuxedo to my prom in school, and that was the 70s. And it was I actually had a powder blue type tux, and City Hall was painted powder blue on the first floor at least, or was it the second floor? I think the second floor. The first floor was orange. Another really horrible color for a building. Now, had the high school been renovated to look as though it would have if it were built as a city hall, maybe with stained doors and frosted glass windows in them, maybe then it might have looked okay. I'd still like to see that happen, but it isn't really the kind of thing we can spend money on right now. But the third floor of City Hall, where the retirement board was and will return, really remarkable that the blackboards were intact underneath these bulletin boards, and that the hardwood floor, now I'm sure some of it's dented up and damaged, but where I saw it was rather beautiful, almost like taking something out of a time machine. But maybe you have some thoughts on history, thoughts on elections. Maybe you want to come up with some questions ahead of time for our guest who's talking about labor unions going all the way back to the Middle Ages. We can do all that. 978-374-1900. We'll be back with more of the Open Mike Show in just a minute.
Open Mike!
Tim Coco and the Open Mike will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
The Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom turns out local programs every day and night. Tune in for local news, Community Spotlight, and the Open Mike Show. 97.9 WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net.
Using WIC is easier than ever. Now you can use the WIC card instead of checks for your food purchases.
WIC is a free nutrition program that helps working families stretch their food budget and make healthy choices. WIC helps families learn to shop for nutritious foods and offers resources like online nutrition education and an app to make shopping easier. Visit us online at mass.gov/WIC to find out if you qualify. This message is brought to you by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health's WIC Nutrition Program.
For more information locally, call the WIC office at Community Action at 978-374-2191.
Catch the wave. WHAV Open Mike.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mike Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
And welcome back to the Open Mike Show. Let's go to our first caller. Brian is on line 2.
First caller. How are you, Tim?
All right, Brian. How are you is a better question.
I'm hanging in.
All right.
Hanging in.
So what do you want? Do you want to put in a birthday entry? You want to talk about the blackboards in the old Haverhill High School? You have something fun for us? What do you have,
Well,
Brian?
nothing really that much fun. I mean, I was just telling Chris that I would call in my godchild, who is my niece, who will be 30 years old on the 14th. But, you know, she lives up in Barrington. So,
Well, you could put her in and then have her come down to have cake with you.
I just can't see it. It's been years.
All right. Well,
Many years.
Your call. All right.
You know, we talk about the old high school and stuff, and you know, they renovate here and there, and you know, within the place, and I think it's really cool that the history is showing through with the blackboards and the hardwood floors and all that. But you know, people may not realize this, but you know, the City Hall, as it stands, it's still not what you call 100% compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act, along with the Architectural Access Board regulations.
You know, that's actually a good point. I was saying how we needed to kind of undo the 70s from that building, which goes back to 1909 for design. I think it opened a year later. But, actually, there are ways to do ramps and that kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, City Hall is funny because one time they got a wind up and they built what I call the ramp to nowhere. I believe it's one of those doors in the parking in the rear of City Hall where there's this ramp and you go in and then you get stairs going up and stairs going down.
Oh, really? I don't remember that ramp. Where's that?
It's in the back. You know, when you come down from the parking lot, you know, with those stairs that come down and...
Yeah, not to mention that those are kind of an obstacle for even if you can walk and see fine. Yes.
But that this ramp, it's on a door that on the back side of the building.
Because I know the door that I typically use, which is closer to Main Street, but in the rear of the building. I don't think there's anything there. So you're saying there's another door that has access. Is it perhaps the one that the credit union uses?
I don't know what they use.
But I see your point. So once you can get in the building, okay, but then you can't go anywhere. Well, there is an elevator, right? Or you can't get to that either.
You can't get to that because you have stairs going up and stairs going down.
Oh, so you need stairs to get to the elevator. That
Right.
sounds pretty smart now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's little things here and there because I got to where most of the time I just use that Main Street side. You know, they have an electric door there, you know, and you press the button, the door opens, and that's cool if you're, especially in a wheelchair, you know. And then the elevator is right in there. And the
Interesting
elevator's
thing.
not totally compliant. It doesn't sound when it goes past the different floors, but that could be corrected. You know, there are different things.
No, that makes sense. You know, it's actually you kind of brought to my mind. Did the original high school have an elevator?
I don't know.
If not, that was probably the biggest expense to that building was to put the elevator in it.
You know, remember several years ago, too, they were supposed to be putting in a new elevator, but I think what they did was they just kind of fixed up the old one. But, you know, I'm not sure of the details on that.
Well, I know your point, though, because in order to get to, say, the elevator across the hallway from the city clerk's office, you have to come upstairs first. You're right.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go to the registry, you got to go downstairs.
That's right. But if you take that Main Street side, you know, you just go right in. You're in the basement, and the elevator is right nearby there, and you just get on it and head up.
Yeah, okay, that's the one I was thinking probably would be the best for access, but maybe that's what you meant by partially accessible or whatever you said at the beginning of this.
Yeah, it's around the corner, you know, on the back side of the building. And nobody would admit to, you know, who got that thing going. It was a long time ago that they did that, but
yeah, I wonder. I'll have to look at that a little more carefully.
And we don't have any Braille signage at all.
You know, it's funny now. That's, you know, it would have been good if the city council had heard from you because they recently spent $15,000 on signage in the building. And, you know, maybe it just didn't occur to anybody to, say, ask Brian about Braille or other types of ways of accessing.
Right. Well, it's right in the regs, too, and there is a commission on disability issues. You know, I'm available for help for them anytime, you know, but...
Well, maybe it's a little too close to home, I don't know, if you will. Well, that's a curious item there. Now, is okay not from a moral point of view, but from a legal one. Is the building grandfathered or no? It still has to comply.
It has to comply. It's City Hall, you know, so it has to comply.
Well, very, very interesting. I wonder
it's
if
open
any
to the public, you know, and we have people who live and work in the city, and you know, it wouldn't take a whole lot to get it fixed up to where it should be, but I mean, it's usable, and I think that's probably how it squeaks by, because it's usable.
All right, no, that does sound like there's an issue there, though. That's a good point. No, I hadn't. You know, probably like many others, hadn't really thought about how you would do it, but I guess it would be done from the rear. You really can't do much with the front steps.
No. Nope, you can't do anything with those, really, but you got that side on Main Street, and you can just go right in.
Now, the Haverhill Courthouse, I would think, has the same problem, and it's being renovated. I wonder how they're going to solve that problem, because I doubt they're going to be able to do much with the front steps, but I haven't seen the design. Maybe they can.
Well, I haven't either, and I don't know who's handling those issues now, because there was a guy who used to work there who had the title, the ADA coordinator over there. He passed away. And so I don't know who's doing it now. And the funny thing is, though, I mean, with the courthouse, it was closed down before for being a sick building. But when they opened it up again, they didn't open it up in any accessible fashion at all.
No, yeah. Well, again, that goes back to the same era. We put up the courthouse not too long before we moved into City Hall. And it's just a really devastating time in Haverhill's history. I don't want to keep harping on urban renewal, but
well,
no matter...
I just thought it was odd that we had a colonial-looking courthouse sitting next to a library that looked more, you know, late 60s, early 70s style.
Right. That was for a very brief period of time, though, right? After the library went up, but before the old courthouse came down?
Well, I'm referring to the new courthouse with its colonial design.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh.
68, I think.
Okay, yes. Well, the library and the courthouse were part of the Civic Center Amendment, so you're right. Yeah, actually, the library was the brutalist style architecture, and the courthouse was actually somewhat traditional.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, anyway, I've got another call coming in, but
Well, I'll get off. So
no, that's
the other
good.
call can come
But
through.
but you raised some good points. I wonder if any elected officials would dare call and talk about this. All right.
Well, maybe so, but it's easy to forget about it if you don't need that. And so, since my wife was in the wheelchair, I don't think that she ever went over to City Hall while she was in the wheelchair.
No, and for good reason. I would understand that.
Yeah.
All right, Brian. Well, thank you very much for raising awareness as you always do.
All right, Tim.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Yeah, bye. Okay, so we have another caller apparently on your side. That phone's working fine then. Okay, so you are on the Open Mike Show. You have a birthday wish for someone.
Yes. For my son, for Keith Levitt.
Okay.
His birthday's August 3rd.
Okay, for Keith, August 3rd. Happy birthday, Keith. How old is Keith?
34.
All right. He's a big boy.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Have you called the Open Mike Show before?
Yes.
All right, because I'm not quite sure my different headphones on. I'm not
Been
sure.
a while.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much for calling the Open Mic Show. Keith's name has been placed into the hat. Is that right, Chris?
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, so about an hour and 15 minutes, we'll draw the winner.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much for calling.
Okay.
Oh,
Thanks.
take care. Bye. All right, looks like it's time to take a break here on the Open Mic Show. We have local news, local weather, and then David Kowalski is joining us to talk about the Labor Guild. We'll be back with more of the Open Mic in just a minute.
Open Mike.
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 7:01.
WHAV LP Haverhill.
Here's what's happening in local news. Another Haverhill firefighter has taken out nomination papers to seek city elected office, this time for mayor. Private Barry Ferguson took out nomination papers from the Haverhill City Clerk's office prior to Friday's deadline. He has until Tuesday at 5 p.m. to return the papers with signatures, but Ferguson told WHAV he may not actually choose to run. "I don't think I'll end up doing it. I'm not sure I have enough time to do it," he told WHAV Sunday. Wrestling with the decision, he added, "I've been on an emotional roller coaster ride for a while now." The 29-year veteran of the fire department, currently based at the 16th Avenue Fire Station, said he believes the core issues are public safety, the opioid overdose crisis, and deplorable city buildings and streets. He also told WHAV he doesn't believe Mayor James Fiorentini should continually run unopposed. A graduate of Whittier Regional Vocational Technical High School, Ferguson, 53, said he considered running for mayor in 2013. Instead, he supported the write-in candidacy of Tyler Kimball that year. Kimball ended up winning 2,191 votes after a brief campaign. Kimball said Ferguson did consult him. "He called and asked me if I was running," Kimball said. "He's a good guy, a very good guy. He's known by a lot of people. It's a huge commitment," he added. Besides Ferguson, 2 other firefighters have expressed interest in seeking elected office. Lieutenant Gregory Roberts, a 17-year veteran of the department and former president of Haverhill Firefighters Local 1011, and Timothy Carroll have also taken out nomination papers for city council runs. Making the jump from the fire department to the corner office has happened before. Fire Chief Lewis Burton defeated incumbent Mayor George Katsaris in 1975. Katsaris did win the seat back, though, in 1977. Speaking of elections, George Bonner has become the 3rd candidate to take out nomination papers for Haverhill's 3rd Essex State Representative seat. Bonner, 22, enters the race against school committeeman Paul Magliacchetti and Haverhill City Councilor Andy Vargas on the Democratic side and Sean Toohey on the Republican side. Other possible candidates include school committeeman Scott Wood. Bonner, who took out nomination papers last week from the Haverhill City Clerk's office, could not be reached for comment before news deadline. The House seat is being vacated by Representative Brian Dempsey, who plans to retire from the Massachusetts legislature in September as he takes a top position at well-known Boston lobbying firm ML Strategies. The special primary election takes place Tuesday, October 10th. Today, WHAV begins its back-to-school countdown. Haverhill Public Schools welcome students in grades 1 through 12 back to class Tuesday, August 29th. Several of the city's elementary schools have planned open houses on the eve of opening day for parents to meet teachers and learn the rules of their child's school. Bradford Elementary School has split its program into 3 parts. Kindergarten and grade 2 parents will attend from 3 to 3:30 p.m. Monday, August 28th, while 1st and 3rd grade parents visit from 4 to 4:30 p.m. and 4th grade parents from 5 to 5:30. The school's PTO will have a table set up with information on how to get involved. Golden Hill welcomes parents of students in all grades from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Nantucket Lake Elementary School Principal Diane Connolly addresses parents in the cafeteria beginning at 4:30 p.m., followed by classroom visits. At Walnut Square School, all parents are invited to an open house from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Classroom assignments will be available the week of August 21st. At Whittier Regional Vocational Technical High School, freshmen and new students report on August 29th, with all students beginning the year on Wednesday, August 30th. Bus routes will be available in late August. All Haverhill students have the day off on Friday, September 1st, and on Labor Day, Monday, September 4th. Schools reopen Tuesday, September 5th, which is also the first day for kindergarten. For information about Timberlane Regional School District and Pentucket Regional School District, visit WHAV.net. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Tim Coco.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. Donald Trump has fired his brand new communications director, Anthony Scaramucci, who only began his new job 10 days ago. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has said there's no bigger threat to the 3 Baltic states than Russia. And Discovery Communications has agreed to a deal to buy Scripps Networks in a merger valued at nearly $12 billion.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Best with wave weather. Nice summer weather continues over the next few days. Generally clear through the night. Temperature by morning low to mid-60s. Mostly sunny and well up in the 80s on Tuesday. Mid-60s with a few clouds Tuesday night. Wednesday mostly sunny. Slight chance of a late day shower and well up in the 80s. This is Gary Best. Your next wave weather coming up in 30 minutes.
Last year, WHAV helped local nonprofits by airing nearly 10,000 community spotlight messages. WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free. 97.9 FM, WHAV.
Catch the wave, WHAV. Merrimack Valley. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mike Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
And we're back here on the Open Mike Show. And my guest is David Kowalski. And just David has learned something already because he showed up here last week to record a community spotlight, and I said, "You're on Open Mike Show Monday night." So he didn't give much warning, so give him a break. But he started telling me these stories about labor unions going back to the Middle Ages or something like that. We'll get the details in a minute, and I was fascinated, and I know our listeners love history. So I thought that that might be good. But a little bit of background on, you like David or Dave?
Whatever you prefer.
Just don't call you late for dinner.
That's right.
All right. David Kowalski, you're in Groveland.
I am.
And you worked for National Grid for, what did you say, 42 years?
Yeah.
And then going back to what it was, Boston Gas
Boston
Company.
Gas, right.
Now, Boston had the Beverly franchise?
Yeah, we were actually part of the New England electric system back then, and New England Power. And if you remember, well, you might not remember, you're not old enough to remember, the state made them break up the utilities, separate the gas and the electric companies.
Actually, I know a little bit about it because the National Grid continues to be responsible for cleanup of coal manufacturing sites.
Okay. Yes.
And actually, that's a separate topic.
Yeah.
Do you know much about those?
Actually, we did. Actually, we hired a grad student for our local when I was president to come in and do a study for us, and they were very helpful for us. And we managed to get the company to do a few things for us there. But it's that inky blue
Right, you're
tar
wearing
stuff.
it. Ferrocyanide.
Yeah.
Ferrocyanide.
Yeah.
Actually, the best blue dye ever created.
But it's been embedded
apparently.
with the lead as it's gone through the system, so it's non-toxic. And actually, in our area up in Salem, when we had the LNG facility now, they found that the mollusks actually ate the stuff, and it went through, and it was ecologically correct.
Okay. Actually, I worked on a number of those for, I guess, what is now a sister company, Essex County Gas Company.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting. Well, of course, we're getting off on another subject, as I'm prone to do. But so you, though, have been very active during your career with the Local 318, Utility Workers of America, going back to 1979, is that right?
Yeah.
And you've held all kinds of titles: president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, shop steward.
I think I've even washed a few dishes for him.
Oh, you did. All right. So, and founding father, you were one of the founders.
Yeah, what was happening back in the day is after we split the local unions, we're still part of the electric union. So what was happening after we split with Boston Gas is we had people from the electric side negotiating contract for the gas side. And what they were doing is they were doing a pretty good job. But when they were coming to us and asking us to reject a contract, back in those days, you're looking at 9.5 for 3 years, and they say, "I think we can do a better job. You need to reject it." Well, they were going back to work the next day. We wouldn't have been. So I realized something needed to be done, and we had to separate. So the movement took quite a while, and it wasn't until 1985 that I got enough people to sign on, and finally we split. I became vice president of then Local 318, and then a year later became president.
All right, and then you've stayed with labor even since retirement, but before that you were treasurer of the North Shore Labor Council, and then, well, actually, here's a little aside. On the finance committee in the town of Groveland.
Yes, I was.
So I've known some of the members over the years. Bill Adams,
Tom Minicello.
That's right. So plenty of local connections between these communities. But you retired from National Grid last year.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
That's correct.
And you just can't sit still, apparently.
Yeah, you're right. I'm everywhere. I try to do a lot for labor. The Democrats, obviously, it's interesting. All of the backgrounds given labor and given the Democratic Party, they seem to intertwine. And I find the fights that I fight for one, I find out that they exist in the other one as well. And everything is templated together.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. But what I have to say, when you wrote to me last week, I didn't know any of this, and so one of the reasons you're really here, although we're going to talk a lot of history, I think, if I can make you, but You are involved now with the Labor Guild School.
Yeah, the Labor Guild School.
Now, that's part of the Archdiocese, is that right?
Yeah, we've been under their auspices for a long time. They were actually funding us for a while. Now we're our own organization. We still, they still are part of our board, and we work closely with the Archdiocese in their mandate. It's basically... talked about Catholic doctrine, but it's not only Catholic doctrine, it's a Judeo-Christian doctrine. It's actually any organized religion doctrine. Now, when you speak to social and economic issues of people getting paid a decent wage and being able to have access to the economic system itself, some people don't have access to the economic system. They don't make enough money to make a difference. There's no boots to pull themselves up by the bootstrap.
I mean, it does sound like a natural for the church, but I hadn't really thought about it. So how long, you say you're on your own somewhat now, but how long ago did the Archdiocese work with the Labor Guild School?
Well, we go back to around 1930s, 1935.
Really?
I'll start the history then.
Kind of the height of the labor movement.
Well, they were
the
initially,
Depression.
yeah, exactly, Tim. What happened was it was the Depression era. We had a president for the first time. The slogan was, your president wants you to join a union. And that was a slogan across the country. And that's because of the National Labor Relations Act. National Industrial Recovery Act was still just
Franklin
coming in.
Delano Roosevelt was quite ahead of his time, wasn't he?
Quite ahead of his time. And the genius of that is he didn't try to put people in charge to decide what unfair labor practices were, or he just let it unfold, or what the wages should be in certain industries. He let the unions and the management people work that out. And that's where it began. A proliferation of unions started. And people didn't know. I mean, they didn't know what an unfair labor practice was. I mean, they just put the basic skeletal shell of a labor law up, and the meat of the labor law came from the court cases that followed. That's where it came from.
So case law kind of evolved.
Molded it. It molded labor law is what it did. And they didn't know what an unfair labor practice was at that time. They didn't know how to organize themselves, bylaws or any of that. So the Catholic Church devised about 200 different dioceses across the country, and churches and church basements, parochial schools. They brought in professionals to teach how to do these things and to teach people how to work in good order in the workplace. And when I say the workplace today, it could not only Laverne and Shirley on the production floor.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I'm talking about, it could be the guy swinging in a bucket
We like
truck.
Laverne and Shirley references. It's perfect for our music format. Okay.
But it could be a surgical ward.
I'm going to make you sing the theme song.
I might remember it.
Listen, Huss and Pepper and Copra, I don't know what the name of the company was.
And so that's how it all began. They brought in professionals and practitioners that worked in the field to promote good order in the workplace and give people the know-how to work in good conscience and to work with courage as well and be able to stand up for their rights in front of their boss. And that's exactly what we're doing today. That message and that moral fiber has not changed. We do the same things today. And we've got people from, I brought a small list of people. In public speaking, we do labor law, labor history, stewards training, negotiations, all of that, arbitration, and we have professionals coming from federal bureaucracies as well as state arbitrators and
what's
mediators.
good? I'll tell you what we ought to do. We ought to, because I think that's the meat of what we're trying to achieve here tonight. We have to take a break for Community Spotlight. I also hear the phones ringing. This is when Chris gets real busy in Master Control. But let's take a break, and then we're going to come back, and we can also take your calls, 978-374-1900.
Open Mike!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
97.9 FM, WHAV.
Catch the wave!
Suspense, a weekly anthology of notable melodramas from stage and screen, fiction and radio, presented every Monday night to bring you to the edge of your chair, to keep you in suspense. Listen to the new Suspense with a company of Hollywood actors and surprising guest stars, Monday nights at 10, with encore performances at 1 a.m., right here on WHAV. Remember, only local radio can bring you this feature opportunity, but only WHAV does.
Community Spotlight.
The Veterans Northeast Outreach Center, founded in 1985, was established to address the needs of veterans and their families throughout the Merrimack Valley. The Outreach Center is located at 10 Reed Street in Haverhill. Some of the services provided by the center include providing information, referrals, and registration assistance for healthcare benefits. In conjunction with other local agencies, the center also provides employment assistance services for veterans. For more information about these and other services available to veterans and their families, contact the Veterans Northeast Outreach Center at 978-372-3626. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at WHAV.net or email news@WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, this is Diane Carr.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mike Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
And we're back on the Open Mike Show, 97.9 FM, WHAV. We're here with David Kowalski, retired from National Grid, and now very, very much involved with the Labor Guild, which is getting ready to open up its 2017 fall term. I believe we have a caller. I don't know if it's relevant to the topic or it's her birthday. Chris, is it on your side or my side? I'll tell you what, I'll take a chance and open this one. You are on the Open Mic Show.
Hello.
Yes, you're on the Open Mic.
Oh, good. Thanks, Tim. So I just want to compliment the gas company.
Oh.
I live near Monument Street in Haverhill, and they're putting in new gas meters. The gas company is a new pipeline coming down the road. And they're doing such a good job. They're very, very, very polite. All the workers come to the house, tell us what's going to happen, what the schedule is. It's been in the paper, and it's been on WHAV, and we receive letters as to what the status is. So I'm very pleased with the situation. It's not an inconvenience to anyone on Monument Street or people going to the high school. So congratulations to the National Grid gas section for what they're doing there.
So your
and also,
colleagues.
I remember a little bit about union law and union history from years ago, and I think one of the first laws that affected and helped the unions was the red flag law. Anyone familiar with that particular law? It had to do with the railroads.
Oh, the red flag law. Actually, they used to use the red flags. They used to have them in Haverhill, but I don't think it was a law back then. If you read the Haverhill Gazette from the 1880s, 1890s, you'll see that they had at-grade railroad crossings throughout Haverhill, and there were a lot of people getting maimed and hurt. So I think they probably came up with the red flaggers out there just so people wouldn't get hurt.
The red flaggers was some of the first organized to become unionized. And they fought it in the courts, and the courts came back favorably, saying that because of public safety, et cetera, that they could, in fact, unionize.
What year was that? Do you remember?
No, I can tell you when I studied it was probably 1965.
Yeah.
So that's a few years ago.
Well, the railroad unions were organized right into the 1850s, and actually the Great Railroad Strike, 1877 as well.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good unions. I think that the trade unions by far excel a lot of the other unions. For instance, the the masons and the carpenters and the painters, etc. They all do such a great job in any of the products, any of the workplaces that they go to. And I mentioned something about the gas company doing the job on Monument Street. And I said I was a little concerned about the street being disrupted and not paved properly. And they said, don't worry about a thing. The gas company will do a perfect job when they finish refinishing that portion of the state. And they're staying right against the side of the road, so there won't be much of a disruption. But I can't compliment them enough for what they're doing. I'm not going to compliment Tim enough for what he's doing with his show tonight and every night.
Well, thank you. And by the way, folks, this is Attorney Joe Edwards, who we will have him on doing a sports program as soon as we can get a producer. And Joe, thanks for the reminder.
Okay. All right. Another good show. Thank you, both of you, for what you're doing tonight.
Well, thank you very much, Joe.
All
right, thanks. Well, that was a good point. So there's some kudos, but I bet the people who are doing the work are union employees.
Well, some of them are. I mean, when you're digging up Monument Street, and when they do the installation, they're usually done by an outside contractor that actually they are non-union. There are a few around, but most of the ones that National Grid uses is a couple different ones. That neither one of them are unionized up in this area.
All right. Well, okay. I suppose they can't have that many extra employees all the time, although...
We'd love to have them.
Well, I mean, I'm going to run the risk of having an opinion here, but I've talked to a number of utility workers, different parts, whether they're electric or gas, and I imagine this is a national trend, maybe something that even comes up at the labor school, but there's more outsourcing, fewer hires, and I have a fear. Maybe someone will alleviate my concerns. I think Joe did a little bit. That, well, this is why you get an automated system, and you can't push number 1, 2, 3, or 4 because it isn't one of the things you want to ask about. And we have this automated society, and I just wonder if safety sometimes is at risk when we don't have enough workers dealing with things as dangerous as gas under our streets. But I don't want to put you on the spot, but if they were part of National Grid, they would most likely be union. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they would be. In fact, we're breaking more and more into that. We do have labor agreements where we are doing a lot more of that distribution work. I mean, we have our own crews laying that line, and some of them, that Monument Street I'm not aware of, but they're usually done by outside contractors. And a few of our crews are laying mains and new mains and capital work like that. But they have to abide by the same safety rules, but they don't have direct supervision all the time, and so you don't know when they're cutting corners and when they're not. And it's hard to trace them after the pipe's in the ground for a few years. A lot of that, the record keeping is not what it used to be.
Well, as I believe, we had it on the air, broadcast from the Haverhill Public Library. I think Clean Water Action was one of the groups, I'm not sure they were the driving group, that talked about all of the gas leaks in the Commonwealth. Now, of course, some of the infrastructure goes back 100 years. Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of that cast iron is leaving now, but there's still quite a bit of the cast iron still left in the ground. They're being replaced with plastic pipe now.
We had a story on what we call our Haverhill Heritage series about, now pardon the term, the robber barons. And one of the robber barons, according to the then Attorney General of the Commonwealth, turn of the last century, was Stone and Webster. Stone and Webster managed what became Essex County Gas Company, which is now part of National Grid. But Stone and Webster had gradually taken control of a lot of gas companies, and the Attorney General thought it was such a serious enough issue of controlling of prices and the way the boards were established and the conflicts of interest that the Attorney General of the Commonwealth went to the legislature to ask for more money to fight the robber barons. And apparently they succeeded in pretty much putting Stone and Webster down, which we don't think of today as a company that ran utilities, but that's what it was.
Yeah, and actually they wrote a white paper back, I think in the early 80s, about the benefits of having one gas company. and consolidating them because they had their eye on doing that. But they were out ahead of the curve. They knew what they were doing back. This deregulation. A bunch of corn farmers in Iowa didn't wake up yesterday and say, hey, let's deregulate the trucking or the gas or utilities. I mean, this was well designed.
No, you're absolutely right. Now, we're going to take a break for weather in a minute, but maybe what kind of person would be interested in going to the Labor Guild School? Is it a younger person who's interested in organizing? Is it an older worker who kind of wants his or her union to be a little more effective and efficient? Could it be a city employee who's already part of a union but doesn't think they're getting enough from it? Or any of all?
All of them, actually. I've had retired priest in my class. He actually took my class two semesters.
Unionized the churches?
No, he worked with a lot of the immigrant population, and he really enjoyed my class. And he took it. I saw him there the second time. He says, "You can't get this stuff anywhere else, Dave. You're the only one that's teaching it." So I felt pretty proud about that. But
I would think he's right. I didn't know anything about this until you came here.
And there's a gentleman in my he comes from Munson, Massachusetts. He comes. He's 84 years old, 84 years old, and he comes every Monday night, and he takes a class. And he helped build one of the buildings that were housed in there for a while. That school was in. He put the bricks into that school.
Well, that's a good point. Where is the school?
The school is in Braintree. It's at the Pastoral Center, where Cardinal O'Malley works out of there, and the Pilot, the newspaper, is published there. It was a Boston Scientific, a Boston Financial building that Flatley donated to the Archdiocese shortly before his death, and that's where we have our classes. It's a state-of-the-art office building with PowerPoints. I do my PowerPoint right from a projector there. It's a wonderful facility.
All right. Tell you what, we'll take a break for weather, and I think, Chris, do we still have a call sitting on your side? All right, because I had a call on this side. All right, we're going to take a break for weather. When we come back, we're going to learn a little more about the Labor Guild School, the kinds of courses that are available, how much it costs, who should go, and a lot more, because what I really want to get into is some of this fascinating history of the labor movement. We'll be back with more of the Open Mike Show in just a minute.
Open Mike!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 7:31.
97.9 WHAV.
Catch the wave!
Hi, Tom Bergeron here. I started at WHAV in 1972. And look, WHAV's still here, but it won't be if you don't help support it. Go to WHAV.net. Become a contributor. Keep us going.
Wave weather!
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Bess with WAVE weather. Nice summer weather continues over the next few days. Generally clear through the night. Temperature by morning low to mid-60s. Mostly sunny and well up in the 80s on Tuesday. Mid-60s with a few clouds Tuesday night. Wednesday mostly sunny, slight chance of a late day shower, and well up in the 80s. This is Gary Best. Your next WAVE weather coming up in 30 minutes.
WHAV Open Mike.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mike Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
We're back on the Open Mike Show, and we're with David Kowalski, who is... Actually, what is your title?
I'm just a retiree. I was former president of Local 318. I'm not important enough to have a title.
But you're on the executive board.
I'm on it's pretty much the board of directors. It's the executive board of the Labor Guild.
All right, the Labor Guild.
One of us, just one. I think there's about 20 of us.
Okay, let's review this again. So the Labor Guild has classes how often?
Monday nights.
Monday nights.
Begins September 11th. I think the end graduation is like November 13th.
All right, so it's at the Guild's new Braintree campus, September 11th, Mondays. And what's the time commitment on a Monday? Well, what time does it start? Maybe people getting out of work.
Classes start around 7. It's difficult for some of the tradespeople that get out early, but it's plenty of time if you want to have dinner and get over there. It's at 66 Brooks Drive. It's up with the old twin drive-ins used to be up in the right there.
And they can get all this information online, right? LaborGuild.com?
Yeah, LaborGuild.com.
LaborGuild.com. And so these are, how long are each class?
About an hour and a half, thereabouts. And we get 2 courses a night. You choose, the cost, I believe, is $125. I happen to have a brochure here.
And from your public service announcement on WHAV, the classes include negotiations, steward training, public speaking, that's useful no matter what you're using it for, is that right? Mm-hmm. Employment law, labor history, which I'm fascinated by. Are there other types of courses?
Well, yeah. Here, not at this semester, there's when employee benefits are no longer a benefit. And that's taught by a couple of attorneys out of Reitman Siegel's office, Paul Kelly and Lou Mandarini. We have leadership at every level. That's another utility working guy. We're all practitioners in this. There's no one's writing a book for their academic, peers, and we're all practitioners in the field. I mean, we've done this a very long time, and we're all very experienced at what we do.
So those who can do and teach.
Yeah.
As opposed to the cliche.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can't. Oh, or did and teach.
All right.
And at different points of the curriculum, they offer other things. Shop stewards trainings are usually a staple there.
What is a shop steward?
Shop steward is the first line of defense. If you have an issue with in a union shop, first you have to be organized, and if you feel that there's a violation of contract language, or you feel something's going on that's unfair, you bring it to your shop steward. Your shop steward is the one that presents it to your supervisor. He also keeps order on the shop floor. Remember I was telling you about keeping an organized, a good workplace, order in good order in the workplaces.
Sure.
Those are the kinds of things. Every workplace has its like a pecking order or an organization or a system, I should say, on how they do things. And sometimes you'll have a new boss come in, or someone will step in and ask you to do things differently, and it's against your core, either because it's against work rules or if it's against safety rules and it starts to bother you. At least you have a recourse in an adjudication process, and a shop steward is the one that initiates that and starts to take it forward. And you'll have a conversation, hopefully a civil conversation with your supervisor, and if you can't settle it, it goes off to second or third step. Usually it'll go into an arbitration case or a mediation case, and you try to settle it civilly. And usually they are. Sometimes it's not pleasant for one party or the other. There's a winner or a loser, but there's a lot of times where you can mediate a lot of that stuff.
All right. Now what are the age ranges? All ages? What?
Yeah, I mean, I've had them 25 young men and women just out of apprenticeship schools, the 103, IBEW 103, Teamsters 25, nurses, SEIU sends quite a few people there. The T's going through some privatization, so we're seeing them anywhere between the ages of 25 and 50 to 60 years old, and there's a broad range of.
Now, do you find like people who are seasoned union members who may have been with a local union for years and years and years, but suddenly conditions are changing? Do you find those people coming to learn some new skills?
Usually they have the skills. We also offer seminars for those other skills. I mean, a few years ago, the big thing was healthcare. Where was it going? The prices of healthcare, the HMOs, and we sponsored a seminar at BC. We had all the stakeholders come in, not only unions, but also the hospitals and the insurance companies come in and talk and discuss the situation at the time and where the industry was going. We did the same thing with deregulation of the utilities. Again, we had all the players in there. We had the lawmakers in there. Dan Bosley at the time was in government regs. We had meetings with him, and we said, listen, this is what's going on in Maine here. And we brought all the stakeholders, and we had seminars, and we could kind of map out a strategy on where the industry was going and where our place as unions were in that. And now the big thing we've been running seminars on lately has been the opioid addiction. That's a huge.
Oh, no, that's interesting. So this is something as seminars on this as well. And what form do those take?
Well, we've had the people from the M&A come in, with people from the building trades, people from the centers in Boston that do outreach to the homeless community, and bring them all into one room. And we do that. I think we did that out in Worcester a few months ago, and that's caught on. We're going to probably be doing more of those, but they've done a great job and some heartbreaking stories there.
I would imagine.
But I mean, when I talk about socio-economic issues, I mean, social also plays in. Racial is also part of that socio-economic, and we've got to do something with this. Our children, it's rampant. Our children are dying at a rapid pace, and we're just now getting around to it. The immigrant community and the people of color have been dealing with this for a long time, and they're actually a little angry that we're late to the game on this. But at least we're at the game now, and we're bringing some resources. And the Catholic Church is getting into it in a big way, and I hope they're going to act as a polarization to bring other groups in together and work as one, so we can do best practices and figure out what we're doing right and not duplicate each other's efforts going forward.
So this really does bring together. This really is a guild of sorts.
Well, really is the guilds, and to get into some of your histories, the guilds were formed from different crafts. Is where the guilds were formed. Guild meaning Geldlian or Geld. Payment of feast is where the name guild comes from. And it's kind of a dues. It's kind of that and a Scotten lot where people would pay for services of the union. That's where union dues came from. But the unions themselves actually started, and it's very natural tendencies too. Somebody punches your sister, you as a big brother go over and say, hey, you grab them, and those are family bonds. But what happened in the old ages when, the marauders came over and they took your crop, and you would band together with other of your neighbors, and you kind of established artificial bonds, and they were kind of like posses and things like that. Well, that was artificial bond, but eventually it became a guild. And the earliest guilds, to believe it or not, would be, like I said, the posses. But the Vikings used them.
The Vikings.
The Vikings used what they called frith guilds, and they were band together, and they would sail in convoys. So they wouldn't be pirated or the groups would other groups or
sticking together in common interest.
And that basically that's what unions are. They come together and they organize around societal necessity. And I say, what is societal necessity? In the early days, it was nothing more than trying to build a wharf so they could sail their ships and get the cargoes on without have to bring them in on small boats, get their cargoes in and out. Today, there was a time years and years ago when it meant basic subsistence because the robber barons, as you said, weren't paying people enough for their basic subsistences for food, water, heat, good drinking water. And today, what's a societal need? Right to health care, decent health care. These are the things, when I say societal need, it's a kind of a abstract word, but it is about what is bothering the general public and how they come together around that to take care of that particular problem. And in all cases, they come together and they organize. They have to organize and they have to get something done because the people that need to get it done aren't doing it.
Are your classes at all, maybe during other semesters, at all geared to maybe there's a group of workers who are not unionized but think maybe they should be? Do your classes address how to form a union, how to get certification, how to go to the National Labor Relations Board?
Well, we will do that. But I mean, there are classes. I mean, you don't have to be a union member to go to the classes if you want the knowledge. I mean, when we talk about going to the union, you asked who goes there. I mean, we're basically a boot camp for union workers that want to, move up in their union and take a leadership role in their union.
A boot camp.
And when you finish these classes, though, you have the skills to stand up for yourself, to ask for what your rights are, to work with good conscience, when I say good conscience, I mean, how many times have you heard the word, it's only business? I'm sorry you're losing your job, Tim, but, it's you understand it's a business. Well,
you're absolutely right. I've heard that.
That's personal.
It doesn't help.
That's not good conscience. You have to work in good conscience. And we give you the knowledge to stand up to the boss and say, hey, it's not just business. I know that guy. He's got a wife and kids and a family to feed. We got to find a way to do this. And, maybe it's watering down the chicken soup. Maybe other people don't get as much for a while until your employer gets over the hump and help them out. Because everyone wants to see their employer do well because you want to see your group do well. You want to see the business thrive because you want to thrive. And we all basically want the same things in life. We want a decent way of life. We want to put food on the table. We want to make sure our kids grow well and are nurtured well, and we can afford the things they need to have. And we want to develop our skills, to do them well, be respected by our peers, and to be, pivotal in our community. We want to do something in our community. I mean, if you're working 90 hours a week, you can't be the baseball coach. You can't be the Sunday school teacher. You can't do those things.
That's an excellent point. One of the things I observed, and I think most people in service clubs, whether it's a Rotary or Kiwanis or Lions or Exchange, one of the things they noticed after consolidation of the utilities is that they have fewer members, and they're older members now. And I know that when I was with the Exchange Club in Haverhill many years ago, the new guy gets to be membership chair or something like that. So I'm like, okay, where do I start? And I just started calling the utilities. Verizon wasn't called that then. New England Telephone. Oh, sure. We have a community service program. We'll find someone who's in your area who's interested, and we'll see if we got someone from New England Telephone. We got someone from Massachusetts Electric. We got someone from Essex County Gas Company, and because that was a corporate principle of service to community, and maybe this is a good place for us to take a break, and then we'll come back and talk about are unions still relevant and why, and how they benefit the community. We'll do that when we return with David Kowalski here on the Open Mike Show.
Open Mike!
Tim Coco and the Open Mike will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
For live and local talk, listen to the Open Mike Show, Monday nights. You can also see the program at WHAV.tv. WHAV, the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free.
Using WIC is easier than ever. Now you can use the WIC card instead of checks for your food purchases. WIC is a free nutrition program that helps working families stretch their food budget and make healthy choices. WIC helps families learn to shop for nutritious foods and offers resources like online nutrition education and an app to make shopping easier. Visit us online at mass.gov/WIC to find out if you qualify. This message is brought to you by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health's WIC Nutrition Program.
For more information locally, call the WIC office at Community Action at 978-374-2191.
WHAV Open Mike.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mike Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
And we're back on the Open Mike Show 12 minutes before the hour, 97.9 FM, WHAV. We're with David Kowalski, who is here representing the Labor Guild School, which is in Braintree, had been associated with the Archdiocese.
Yes.
Is that right?
Well, we still are.
And there's still some connections.
Financially, we're not so much anymore, but we are in every other aspect.
So classes begin September 11th in Braintree. They begin about what time?
They start about 7 o'clock.
About 7 o'clock. And different topics each week, or is it kind of one course rotates to another?
One person will teach their own class, and that'll run for about an hour and 15 to 20 minutes. You have a short break, 10-minute break. You go to another classroom for whatever class you signed up for, and you'll take that class.
And what kind of classes are there? You have a class descriptions there?
Well, I'll take mine for example.
What's yours?
I'll do mine. My class is called Power and Struggle. It's the forces that shape the labor movement, and they kind of advertise it as the class. The class is a staple for every union member. It is the story of unions and corporations, how they formed and how they had grown. The class will give an overview of how labor struggled for fair wages and social justice from a variety of different lenses: economic, political, judicial, and legislative. And this class gives a unique perspective of how unions have been molded into what we are today. And that's it in a nutshell. And basically, I show a history of what had happened, how labor unions developed, how our counterpart, actually our brethren, corporations, came out of the same womb, and how they developed together, and how we became separated, and how things that are happening today.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And we can talk about that, and how things that happen today are repetitive, and it's not something that's new, Tim. This is a mode that we've been steeped in for a couple of hundred years. These things have been perpetrated on us. The clothing changes, the styles change, but this is nothing different. This is nothing different that's been happening to us today than happened to us in the 1700s, in the 1800s, the 1900s.
Actually, Bread and Roses just sent a press release out today about their new logo. They do a different design, each one. Yeah, we have a lot of labor history right here in the Merrimack Valley, don't we?
This is wonderful. I actually did a research paper here on the socialist movement when I was in college. And the thing that intrigued me about doing it here is, number one, I had access to the Haverhill Library, which was right over the bridge. But I read a book by Henry Bedford talking about the socialist movement. And there was a piece in there that said the first socialist mayor came from Haverhill, Massachusetts.
John Chase.
That's right, in 1889. And I said, oh, my God, I had no clue. So I came over and I learned about the Boot and Shoe Workers Union. They have a wonderful file over there, their special resources area. Wonderful microfilm of the newspapers, the Social Democrat, the Haverhill Gazette. And for all of you English teachers out there, I would recommend you folks go over there and take a look at some of those old papers, because these were the years before photographs, and the writing is flowery and is extremely descriptive. It's wonderful. I wish I could write like that. I mean, it's
I've seen
wonderful.
some of those. There was a new building went up on just off Main Street at Columbia Park, and I can't remember. I think it's the Columbia Park Apartments, but it was the high end for its day, and the descriptions in the paper,
flowery, very flowery.
About the cornices and the majesty, and
it built a picture in your mind.
It really did. It
Yes.
really did. So it's a good point. I worked for the Haverhill Gazette years ago. Now, here's a question, because I bet, I'm afraid to say it, there's some skeptics listening to their radio saying, unions aren't relevant anymore. What would you say to those people?
They're becoming irrelevant. I hate to say it, Tim.
So you would agree that?
Well, the numbers don't lie, and then we're around. I think we're up around 30% back in the 60s. Excuse me, and we're down around 11% now, and there's a reason why the Republicans are attacking public unions, because that's mostly where our base is, and they're going after fire, they're going after teachers. They're going after AFSCME workers that work in the streets. Anyone that works in government, they're going after them, and they're cutting their way to fund. They want to cut off the union checkoff so they don't have to deduct the money. They're making the union executives go out and chase the money to get the money for their union coffers. It's an attack on unions, and yes, we are becoming more and more irrelevant for that reason.
But does that mean that they're not needed, or as soon as they're gone, we're suddenly going to lose minimum wage? We're going to use the 8-hour day. I mean, actually, wasn't there studies in the 60s that said if we continued with our progress, people would be working only a few hours a week, and that has all changed, hasn't it?
Well, if you take a look at what's behind this Republican agenda that's going on today. If you look back about 30 years, all you heard was Democrats, big government waste. Repetition is a thing that persuades people over a period of time. Even if you hear a bad song enough times, you're going to start humming it. Well, that's what's happened. Now they've gotten in control, and now it seems like anything you get from the government, whether it's a library card, a fire department, a police department, an education system, a registry, they want you to get that from a private, for-profit corporation. They want all of government to be gone and replaced with a private firm.
Now, we've had some guests on this program who talked about here's one of the risks of privatizing certain things that belong in the public sector, at least according to these guests. But I believe our longtime listeners will remember there was a school-to-prison pipeline subject, and there seemed to be some reason to believe that for-profit prisons, we suddenly increase our incarceration rates. And more people go to jail for fewer crimes because we have to feed the pig, if you will.
That's exactly right. I mean, that Jan Brewer down in Arizona got in a mess like that. They incarcerated a 14-year-old boy for a petty crime. He was in there for 4 months, and he ended up killing himself.
Wow.
I mean, and if you want a court system like that and you want to prosecute criminals, we'll prosecute criminals. We'll give you as many as you can handle. If you want to privatize police, we'll lock them up. We'll lock up everybody. I mean, it's a dangerous situation. Government is good. Government does a lot of good, but there is a I don't know what I want to call it. There's a group out, and I wouldn't say it's a group. There's just a tendency and a mindset that government is bad, and if you believe government is bad, you're going to get bad government. Nobody seems to trust anybody anymore. We lost our soul a while ago. We've lost our civility now in society. But you have to believe in something. You have to honor something, and you have to trust in something. If you don't trust in the government, and you don't trust anybody in government, you're going to have anarchy.
Well, when I've heard business people, and I'm a business person, but I've heard business people say, I did it all on my own, not a bit of help from government. I said, so the post office didn't deliver you some checks or supplies, so the post office didn't help you. The streets that were part of the commons, if you will, the streets that your trucks drove on and your deliveries came on and your customers used, that wasn't a benefit to you. And they start wanting to change the subject when you do that. And then the internet, gee, that was developed by the government. The ARPANET, I think, originally. And that hasn't helped your business at all. You're an online business, are you? And so I think you're right. I think sometimes the arguments are changed, but the real risk, I imagine that the Labor Guild School tries to answer this question is, what happens when the protections go away?
Well, that's it. And then what you're left with is a plutocratic society. You have the rich running the poor. You know, it was it Jay Gould that said Jay Gould said that, you know, you own the railroads, and he said, you know, I just pay half of them to kill the other half. I mean, that's how much money they have. And people are starving to death. They're going to do that. So that's the reason like-minded people need to band together. I remember one gentleman years ago said to me, you know, if God believed in unions, he would have made them. And I looked at him and thought a minute, and I said, you know what, he did. He called them a church, you know.
Interesting response.
But you know, that's what we are. I mean, no matter what group you're in, you are a group of like-minded citizens or like-minded people that believe in the same things. We believe in fairness in the workplace. We believe in economic and social justice. We believe that everyone that works for a living should be able to have a decent life. I mean, think about it. We are subsidizing Walmart and McDonald's and all of those people because we're paying for their employees' health care. We're paying for their employees' assisted housing. We're paying for their assisted heating. We're paying for their assisted with their children. If they paid a decent wage, maybe the person that works at McDonald's could actually afford to go out to eat once in a while. The woman that works in Walmart could actually buy something or have her hair done or go out to eat or do some of those things.
But more importantly, you're pointing out something that it isn't that the government subsidizing the individual. The government, in reality, is subsidizing the corporation.
The corporation. That's my point exactly.
The corporation can pay lower wages because someone else is going to pick up the health care, the daycare, the SSI, or whatever it is.
You're connecting the dots. Absolutely.
All right. That's last pitch then and then folks, if you missed any of this, you can hear David Kowalski every few hours on WHAV, 1:15 in Community Spotlight with more information. But tell us one more time, the Labor Guild and when fall classes start and how someone can get involved.
Well, it's pretty simple. You just go online and punch in laborguild.com, and you'll see our whole organization there and what we do. And you'll also see a phone number, 781-340-7887, and we hope to see you in the fall. I hope to see you in some of my classes.
And we'll keep this information handy if any of you, where I often praise our listeners for not wanting to interrupt, but sometimes we're more than welcome to do that. But we'll keep this information handy. The phone number here, if you call, laborguild.com. If you're driving in your car, that's easy to remember, laborguild.com. And David Kowalski was our guest from Groveland, and there's so many more directions we can go, and I have a feeling if he's willing, it's going to be a regular fixture here at the station.
I'd be happy to. It's a pleasure. It's the first time I've been on the air, and it didn't hurt at all.
No, it didn't. It didn't at all. All right, thank you very much. All right, we're going to go to local news at 1 minute past the hour and back with the Open Mike Show and your calls.
Open Mike!
Tim Coco and the Open Mike will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 8:02.
WHAV LP Haverhill.
Here's what's happening in local news. Another Haverhill firefighter has taken out nomination papers to seek city elected office, this time for mayor. Private Barry Ferguson took out nomination papers from the Haverhill City Clerk's office prior to Friday's deadline. He has until Tuesday at 5 p.m. to return the papers with signatures, but Ferguson told WHAV he may not actually choose to run. "I don't think I'll end up doing it. I'm not sure I have enough time to do it," he told WHAV Sunday. Wrestling with the decision, he added, "I've been on an emotional roller coaster ride for a while now." The 29-year veteran of the fire department, currently based at the 16th Avenue Fire Station, said he believes the core issues are public safety, the opioid overdose crisis, and deplorable city buildings and streets. He also told WHAV he doesn't believe Mayor James Fiorentini should continually run unopposed. A graduate of Whittier Regional Vocational Technical High School, Ferguson, 53, said he considered running for mayor in 2013. Instead, he supported the write-in candidacy of Tyler Kimball that year. Kimball ended up winning 2,191 votes after a brief campaign. Kimball said Ferguson did consult him. "He called and asked me if I was running," Kimball said. "He's a good guy, a very good guy. He's known by a lot of people. It's a huge commitment," he added. Besides Ferguson, 2 other firefighters have expressed interest in seeking elected office. Lieutenant Gregory Roberts, a 17-year veteran of the department and former president of Haverhill Firefighters Local 1011, and Timothy Carroll have also taken out nomination papers for city council runs. Making the jump from the fire department to the corner office has happened before. Fire Chief Lewis Burton defeated incumbent Mayor George Katsaris in 1975. Katsaris did win the seat back, though, in 1977. Speaking of elections, George Bonner has become the 3rd candidate to take out nomination papers for Haverhill's 3rd Essex State Representative seat. Bonner, 22, enters the race against school committeeman Paul Magliacchetti and Haverhill City Councilor Andy Vargas on the Democratic side and Sean Toohey on the Republican side. Other possible candidates include school committeeman Scott Wood. Bonner, who took out nomination papers last week from the Haverhill City Clerk's office, could not be reached for comment before news deadline. The House seat is being vacated by Representative Brian Dempsey, who plans to retire from the Massachusetts legislature in September as he takes a top position at well-known Boston lobbying firm ML Strategies. The special primary election takes place Tuesday, October 10th. Methuen Police Lieutenant Joseph Aiello was awarded the 2017 National School Safety Award last week. Aiello is a 23-year veteran of the Methuen Police Department and was promoted to the rank of lieutenant earlier this month. He serves as the department's school service unit supervisor and previously as the school resource officer. He also coordinates the Methuen Police Explorers Program and is a member of the Northeastern Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council's School Threat Assessment and Response System. We are honored to have Lieutenant Aiello serving the city of Methuen and our schools, and we are very proud of him for this outstanding achievement, said Mayor Stephen Zani. Aiello also received the award during the School Safety Advocacy Council's 12th Annual National School Safety Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. During the ceremony, honorees from across the country were recognized for their accomplishments in the area of school safety and security. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Tim Coco.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. Donald Trump has fired his brand new communications director, Anthony Scaramucci, who only began his new job 10 days ago. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has said there's no bigger threat to the 3 Baltic states than Russia. And Discovery Communications has agreed to a deal to buy Scripps Networks in a merger valued at nearly $12 billion.
WAVE weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Bess with WAVE weather. Nice summer weather continues over the next few days. Generally clear through the night. Temperature by morning low to mid-60s. Mostly sunny and well up in the 80s on Tuesday. Mid-60s with a few clouds Tuesday night. Wednesday mostly sunny. Slight chance of a late day shower and well up in the 80s. This is Gary Best. You're next to Wave Weather coming up in 30 minutes.
Broadcasting on the Armstrong FM system, this is 97.9 WHAV. Broadcasting on the Armstrong FM system, this is 97.9 WHAV.
Catch the wave, WHAV, Merrimack Valley. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mike Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco at whav.net.
This is your last call. In just a few minutes, we're going to be drawing the winner of the August Albee second-generation Italian Bakery Birthday Cake Contest. All right, so all you have to do, you've got a couple minutes, that's all, to call in, wish happy birthday to someone celebrating in August, or a couple celebrating an anniversary in August. Chris will take their names, you go on the air, and you wish a happy birthday or a happy anniversary, and we'll draw the winner right after that. And it is a pretty competitive race this month here at WHAV, the last day of the month. 978-374-1900. 978-374-1900 if you want to enter someone, even yourself, into the Albee second-generation Italian Bakery Cake Contest. All right, it was such a pleasure to have David Kowalski here on the program. I mean, there's just so many interesting elements, historically speaking. And I have to say, I was surprised. I hadn't realized, although it kind of makes sense. It's consistent with the mission of the Catholic Church, that the Catholic Church was involved in setting up the Labor Guild. Now, David Goudswood, Open Mike Show historian, WHAV historian, he had some information. I didn't see it earlier, but the Locomotive Act, I can hardly read my screen this far away, of 1865, I think, also known as the Red Flag Act, that came up in discussion, was a British law requiring self-propelled vehicles to be led by a pedestrian waving a red flag or carrying a lantern to warn bystanders of the vehicle's approach. Vermont passed similar laws in 1894, but there was no national enactment, according to David Goudswood, Open Mike Show historian. I think that was raised by Attorney Joe Edwards, who called the program. Now, we're going to have open lines for the remainder of the program. If you want to call in a birthday wish, we certainly want you to do that. But also, here in this time we have left, tomorrow is the deadline for turning in signatures for those who are planning to seek elected office either to the Haverhill School Committee, the Haverhill City Council, or the corner office job, the mayor's job in Haverhill. Now, this is your chance to promote something here. You can say you'd like to see a change on the school committee. You'd like to see a change on the city council. You'd like to see a change in the mayor's office. Why? Would you like to see a change? Maybe you're one of those who's absolutely content. If you look at voter turnout, I think most of you are content. Voter turnout is very, very low. So I don't see people anxious to make changes, but maybe you have another comment about that. Why is that? Should we have elections on a Sunday or over a Saturday and a Sunday? Should we have instant registration? You go in and you can register. You can register to vote and vote 5 minutes later. You can do it all at once. Would that help? Are there people who don't think that's a good idea? That could open the floodgates to voter fraud? The statistics, I understand, don't show much of that. Very little, if any, because there's such a high penalty to be paid if you commit voter fraud. But maybe you have a thought either way on that. Would we get bigger turnout for Haverhill School Committee, City Council, and mayor's races if our elections were on Sunday, for example? Maybe you have another solution. Maybe it's all done by the internet. Some people are afraid if the Russians can hack into email, they can certainly change our votes if we do it by internet. Maybe you have something to say about that. What about the candidates themselves? We have another race this year that we didn't expect to have a month ago, and that is the 3rd Essex State Representative seat held by Brian Dempsey, chairman of the very powerful Ways and Means Committee. Well, Brian steps down in September, and we're seeing some names now for people who are interested in that seat. Paul Magliacchetti, who's a member of the Haverhill School Committee, Andy Vargas, who's a member of the Haverhill City Council, Sean Toohey, on the Republican side, who is a member of the school committee as well. And a newcomer, as reported by WHAV, George Bonner. Haven't heard. If you're out there, Mr. Bonner, if you'd like to call the Open Mike Show, we'd like to hear from you. Tried to reach you through social media and other methods to find out what it is that you are hoping to do. Always interested to hear the views because sometimes it's something none of us has thought of. Original ideas really catch on with voters. Would love to hear more about that. If you have an opinion either way, you might want to call the Open Mike Show. This is the Sound Off. The Open Mike Show, 978-374-1900. We do have a caller, but before we do that, I can't remember who raised this with me. Was it last week? Was it on air? I don't recall. About the words open mic. Why does WHAV spell it M-I-K-E instead of M-I-C? Was that you, Chris, who brought that up? I don't remember. Someone brought that up. And actually, I've got to find the article somewhere, but in the older days of radio, the abbreviation really was M-I-K-E. It wasn't M-I-C. Now, it seems like it would be logical that M-I-C for microphone would be the words, but in the 70s, we had a different reason for why we wanted open mic spelled the way we did, because it looked good and rhymed with Bill Pike on the Open Mic. Let's take this caller. You are on the Open Mic Show.
I thought it was Bill Pike you could blame for the spelling.
Yeah, well, no, it's one of those things. I have to find that article. Maybe I'll find it before the end of the show. But no, someone wrote a lengthy, I'll call it a dissertation for lack of a term.
That's my job, damn it.
Yes, well, you just did it with the Locomotive Act.
Well, there's an even better piece of the story. But first of all, my parents' anniversary is next month, so I threw myself in the hat.
Oh, okay. Happy anniversary. Joan and, I'm sorry, I'm getting old.
Bob.
Joan and Bob. All right. And you'll actually be up here around that time, is that right?
Actually, no, I won't. The anniversary is the 1st.
Oh, I guess you won't be up here. That's tomorrow.
I shan't be up there at all. I'll be up there a little later in the month.
Hey, what's funny? If you type in open mic into Google, one of the first entries is WHAV.
There you go. You win.
So,
but the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania attempted to pass a red flag law themselves about the same time as Vermont did. But the legislature went nuts, and the governor actually had to veto the law himself. Pennsylvania, if your self-propelled vehicle, and they're talking in this case automobiles, encountered cattle or other livestock, you were required to stop the engine, get out of the vehicle, and disassemble it and hide it in the bushes as not to spook the animals.
Really?
And when the animals had moved on, you could put it back together and drive away. The governor vetoed it.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
But it just shows nothing new, nothing changes. Everybody fears the current level of technology, so we react to it badly without understanding what we're passing legislation for.
Wow. Okay, so leave it to David Goudsworth to define the history of these rather odd topics. But
in England, it was literally you had to walk 4 miles an hour in front of the vehicle waving a flag.
Chris, I got a new job for you.
I mean, even going across the railroad bridge in Haverhill, you're doing a little better than 4 miles an hour. Not much better, but a little better.
By the way, I did find this article online. Is a microphone a mic, M-I-C, or a mic, M-I-K-E? And this person writes, if you forget your microphone is on and say something inappropriate, do you have a hot mic, M-I-K-E problem, or a hot mic, M-I-C problem? And he goes on, the early abbreviation for microphone dating back to 1927 was mic, M-I-K-E. But over the past 25 years or so, mic, M-I-C, has been steadily pushing mic out of the microphone scene. And this makes some people very unhappy, this person writes.
Everybody gets unhappy.
So
I do have an interesting thought on that, and I'm not at the computer, so I can't amaze you by coming up with something out of thin air. But I wonder if M-I-K-E was originally accepted as the shortcoming because of a German term. In other words, did everybody use German microphones, which in German would be M-I-K?
Oh, okay. Who knows? That's a good point. Actually, here's some interesting examples. We have Coke, C-O-K-E, not C-O-C, cola. Coca-Cola, Coke. Nuke, N-U-K-E, not nuclear, N-U-C. Very interesting that this person has gone to this much work to defend something that might have been a mistake. But no, I hadn't thought about Coke and nuke. So, yeah, very interesting. And then this person goes into the story about how, dictionaries still give Mike with a C and Mike with a K as acceptable alternatives. But at the moment, Google returns 18 times as many hits for Open Mike, M-I-C.
Well, I would hardly consider common parlance in Google to be a reliable source for any decision of that sort.
No, and this is how our language changes, I suppose. Because
well, it's how our language has changed all along. That's why you have words like astronaut, which is basically Latin, despite the fact there's no such thing as an ancient Roman astronaut.
Except in Unsolved Mysteries of the Modern World.
And that's why cosmonauts mean the same thing. It's just what your root words are. What did you pick to start with?
Very, very interesting, David. So,
by the way,
yes.
your guest mentioned a book, and I agree absolutely with him. The Bedford book, Henry Bedford's book. It's Socialism and the Workers in Massachusetts. It is a real nice. I have a reference copy down here. Even let's put it that way.
Oh, okay. So you recommend this?
Oh yeah, you should have a copy of it.
All right. Well, it's interesting. No, I mean, history is what history is. It's, unfortunately, some people now think history and news is something that you can have an opinion about.
Well, my career as a writer has pretty much been reduced down to simply putting facts into context, which should not be something I have to do. It should have been there all along. Any fact in a vacuum can be made to do what it needs to do because it's in a vacuum. You put something back in perspective, and it changes everything.
Very
Socialist mayor in Haverhill. In a vacuum, it's just what it is. But you put it up against the great turmoil that was going on with the shoe factories at that time. In fact,
wasn't David Kowalski good with bringing up all these references so you and I would have something to talk about? Because
bless his heart.
He hit all of these things with a lot of local history there.
Well, you do recall what Jack Russ of the Haverhill Gazette's relatives did for a living. They were shoe manufacturers.
That's right. Shoe money made
and
him.
They were some of the most conservative, anti-labor members.
But you did some research on this, and you found it must have been very difficult at Thanksgiving in that family because there were people on both sides of that issue, now weren't there?
Oh, his mother's side were very pro-labor. So, I mean, but, there was the running gag. You didn't like your job, just wait a few minutes, somebody would club you upside the head with a go back to work. There was violence in Haverhill. There were threats of a strike. the shoe manufacturers literally forced the unions to exist in Haverhill, and once they were organized, that's when John C. Chase gets elected mayor.
Now, very tumultuous Haverhill's history now, wasn't it? Not to mention what was going on in neighboring communities, which pretty serious violence in those places.
Yeah, it was threatening to become that in Haverhill at that point.
No, very, very interesting stuff. All right, I'll tell you what, Chris, why don't you the hat? We're going to close the birthday contest while David's on the phone.
Blame me.
That way, folks, no matter what happens, it's David Goudswood's fault. Now, you're coming on the program in a couple of weeks, is that right?
Yes.
Or are you waiting for me to formally invite you?
Well, it'd be nice if somebody did. I will be going up to... I have to do my schedule out loud because that's how bad I've gotten. You talk about getting old. I'm flying up
watching
to...
it. Notice I dropped it, but I put it back. Okay.
Let's see. I'm flying up to Providence to sit on some panels and present a paper. Then I'm coming... Yeah, I should be there. I think it's the third Monday of the month.
Okay. Third? Okay. We should be able to work that out. Now, Chris is taking a call, so I'm really hesitant to open up the winning entry here in case he's going to add one, then I have to reshuffle.
Well, this is radio. We call, and nobody will know the difference.
That's right. Now, you and I have been good at stalling. Chris, was that a birthday?
By the way,
I was going to try to work it in, but okay, Chris has made an executive field decision. So I'm going to open up the one I have in my hand, and it's for Barbara of Groveland is the birthday cake winner. Barbara of Groveland. You know, I don't even remember that one.
Well, like you said, it was a very busy month.
We had quite a few this month, probably the most ever. And I think that's also a testament that just more people listening. Our new numbers came, which was incredible. Enormous audiences, probably biggest ever. Admittedly, we have more people than we used to have, but just more people concentrated on the media here. I'm just going to make a note winner on this one so that I don't forget, and then I can't remember what this is. Okay.
By the way, I need to say something to you I bet's never been said to any other radio figure in the history of radio.
Wait a minute now. Chris, get the profanity delay ready. Okay, what?
Is it me, or is the studio look a little dark tonight?
Actually, it's funny you say that. It shouldn't have affected the lighting, but where the camera is, because actually, and if Mark LeMay is listening, he can either take the credit or the blame. He's absolutely right. We're a radio station, but we were kind of trying to set up TV fashion with the desk out front, but then I can't see Chris properly because the glass is to my right. So we moved everything to where a radio station should be, and so that I stare through the glass so I can see Chris making faces at me when I'm over time or talking too much or forgetting to take a call. Man, he's criticizing me more than ever, and I never knew it until I could see him during the show.
Well, frankly, the hand signals he uses, I don't think those are right out of the radio operator's handbook.
No, I'm not sure that they are, actually. So tonight, I pretty much kept my clock okay, except right now I'm over on Community Spotlight. But, matter of fact, I guess we'll probably take it out because, what are we, 4 minutes from 3 minutes to the show? So I kept my clock until you came on. I'll blame you.
Then my job here is done.
So, well, David, always great to have the history. And, yeah, I think the room looks a little darker just because of where the camera is placed.
Well,
for those of you
I'll
who
leave
are watching.
with the teaser. How's that?
Okay, love teasers.
I am working on a wavelength article.
Oh, folks, I think I hear a Haverhill Heritage Series item coming on.
I do believe you do, and it is on Haverhill, but not Massachusetts.
Ah.
I am going to give an 800-year history of Haverhill, England.
Wow, that sounds interesting. And then he's going to put a pronunciation guide in there, right?
I'm going to have to. Well, a funny story about that. Haverhill, England is pronounced Haverhill, England, just like we do here. But nowadays, there's so many people coming in from London to live out in the suburbs that started changing the pronunciation, and more people are starting to pronounce it Haverhill.
Oh, boy. So I bet
So
some of
they're
those
running
people
into
have
the same
visited
problem.
Worcester, Leominster, and Billerica.
I don't think nobody's ever going to say Billerica.
All right, well.
But it's a fascinating. It's happening everywhere. I mean, Florida, there is a town named Haverhill.
Woe is me.
So the pronunciations are changing everywhere except the original first one, us.
Well, that'll teach us. All right.
Someone's got to keep the banner high.
David, thanks for the teaser. So, folks, coming up on the Haverhill Heritage Series, if you're a subscriber to WHAV's daily news headlines, you're probably already on the list. But if you're not, Wavelengths Extra comes out about once a month, and very, very popular feature is some of the articles David written. I mentioned one earlier that I wrote about the robber barons and Haverhill Gas Company, but David has turned out so many fascinating things.
Well, we cover the material differently, and I don't think either is better than the other. I mean, you are a news guy. You approach this stuff, who did what, when, where. And I'm a historian. I put stuff in perspective of why they did that when they did it.
No, actually, sounds like we're a team, or should be.
Not that.
All right. Well, David, thank you so much. Looking forward to having you on the program in a few weeks, where we will delve into some little-known aspect of Greater Haverhill life.
Yes, and if I have to, I'll make something up.
Well, and there's the difference. No, I'm kidding.
Good night, Tim.
All right, good night. Thank you, David. All right, and thank you very much to our producer, Chris Porter, in Master Control. That is about to wrap it up. If you missed it, Barbara from Groveland is the winner of the Albee second-generation Italian bakery cake contest here on WHAV 97.9 FM. We're going to go to local weather, and then we'll be back with Open Mike, not in a few minutes, but next Monday night. Good night.
Open Mike!
Join Tim Coco live on the Open Mic again next Monday night at 6:30. The opinions expressed on the Open Mic Show are not necessarily those of its underwriters or affiliated stations. The Open Mic Show came to you from the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom.